Chapter 1. Home again. Lily Hart felt a mixture of anticipation and nervousness as she drove down the winding road that led into Willow Creek. Years had passed since she had left this small town for the busy life of the city, and yet every turn, every familiar landmark, brought back a flood of memories. The old oak trees lining Magnolia Lane swayed gently in the afternoon breeze, and the sunlight filtered through their leaves, casting playful shadows on the street she had once called home. She slowed the car as she approached her childhood house, noting the freshly painted shutters and the flower boxes that her mother had always tended with care. The scent of blooming magnolias filled the air and carried with it a comforting sense of nostalgia that made her chest tighten with both longing and relief. Pulling into the driveway, Lily stepped out of the car and let her eyes wander over the yard where she had spent countless afternoons reading, daydreaming, and playing with friends. The house seemed smaller somehow, yet more inviting than she remembered. She could hear the faint chatter of neighbors greeting one another across their fences and the distant laughter of children playing in the park. Each sound reminded her of the warmth and familiarity she had missed in the city, the simple rhythm of small-town life that had once seemed ordinary but now felt like a treasure dot. As she approached the front door, Lily noticed the mailbox and bent down to retrieve the day's mail. Among the bills and advertisements, a small stack of letters caught her attention. The envelopes were neatly folded and addressed to her family home, but the handwriting was unfamiliar. She held them in her hands, feeling the weight of curiosity and a strange flutter of excitement. The letters were personal and thoughtful, each one carefully written with words that seemed to carry emotion and meaning beyond their simple appearance. Lily wondered who could have sent them and why they had arrived here, at this quiet house on Magnolia Lane. Setting the letters gently on the kitchen counter, Lily stepped inside and let the door close behind her. The familiar scent of home welcomed her, a combination of polished wood, old books, and her mother's lingering touch in the form of fresh flowers in a vase. She ran her fingers along the worn kitchen table where countless meals, laughter, and conversations had taken place. Every corner of the house spoke to her of memories and stories that had shaped her childhood and yet felt suspended in time. For a moment, Lily allowed herself to breathe and simply absorb the feeling of being back in the place where she had grown up. The city had offered her opportunities, challenges, and excitement, but it had never offered the quiet contentment that came from knowing the people, the streets, and the heart of a town like Willow Creek. With the letters resting nearby, she felt an unexpected spark of curiosity and hope. Perhaps these messages were the beginning of something new, or a gentle reminder of connections she had forgotten. Either way, Lily knew that returning home was the right decision, and that the days ahead on Magnolia Lane would be filled with discovery, reflection, and the subtle unfolding of stories yet to be told. She moved to the window overlooking the street and watched as the sun began to dip, casting a golden glow over the rooftops and gardens. The world felt quiet, yet full of possibility. Lily knew that coming home was not just about returning to a place, but about rediscovering herself and the life she had almost left behind. With a deep breath and a heart full of tentative excitement, she turned back to the letters, ready to uncover the mystery that had found its way to her doorstep. Chapter 2. The first letter. Lily picked up the top letter from the stack and held it carefully, feeling the texture of the paper beneath her fingers. The envelope had no return address, and the handwriting was delicate and precise, almost elegant in its simplicity. She hesitated for a moment, a mixture of curiosity and caution swirling in her mind, before carefully opening it. As she unfolded the paper, the words inside immediately drew her in. They were personal and thoughtful, filled with small details that only someone who knew Willow Creek intimately could recall. The letter spoke of quiet afternoons under the oak trees, the scent of spring magnolias, and the gentle rhythm of daily life on Magnolia Lane. Her eyes lingered on the lines, describing moments she had long forgotten, and a warmth spread through her chest. The writer seemed to notice the small joys of life, the fleeting beauty of ordinary days, and even the subtle emotions that often went unspoken. Lily read and reread the words, each sentence carrying a sincerity that made her heart flutter and her mind race with questions. Who could have written this letter? Why send such intimate thoughts to her old home? The letter did not contain any hint of a name, but it had a voice that felt familiar and comforting at the same time. As she sat at the kitchen table, letters spread before her. Lily realized that she had been holding her breath without noticing. She traced the edges of the envelope, imagining the person who had taken the time to write with such care. There was a gentleness in the words, a quiet thoughtfulness that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't experienced in years. Each sentence seemed to reach out across time and distance, bridging the gap between her past and present, inviting her into a connection she could not yet fully understand. Lily's mind wandered as she thought of the small town she had once left behind. The streets, the parks, the neighbors, and even the tiny traditions of Willow Creek now seemed alive in a way they hadn't before. The letter reminded her of the comfort and intimacy of belonging somewhere, of having a life that felt intertwined with the rhythms and stories of a community. She placed the letter carefully on the counter, deciding to keep it safe while she tried to piece together the identity of its author. Over the next few days, Lily found herself anticipating the letters, wondering if more would arrive and what they might reveal. Each one was a puzzle piece, a glimpse into the thoughts and emotions of someone who understood and cherished the quiet beauty of life on Magnolia Lane. She could not shake the sense that these letters were more than casual notes. They were an invitation, a gentle nudge towards something meaningful. With every word she read, Lily felt a growing curiosity and the subtle excitement about the possibilities that lay ahead, all sparked by the simple act of opening a piece of carefully folded paper. The letters became a secret companion to her days, a source of reflection and quiet joy. Lily would pause during her walks along the street, imagining the person who had written them, wondering what their life looked like, and why they had chosen her family home as the place to share their thoughts. With each passing moment, the mystery deepened, and with it, Lily sensed that her return to Willow Creek it holds surprises far beyond what she had imagined. Chapter 3. Familiar for Cecily stepped out of the small grocery store, carrying her bag of fresh produce. Feeling the gentle warmth of the sun on her face, the town had not changed as much as she had feared. The streets were still lined with familiar storefronts. The bakery still sent out the inviting aroma of fresh bread, and neighbors waved as she passed, smiling with recognition. She felt a comforting sense of belonging as she greeted people she had known since childhood. Conversations were light and familiar, filled with the kind of small talk that carried layers of genuine warmth. She realized how much she had missed the subtle rhythms of small-town life, the way everyone knew each other, and the quiet sense of community that made Willow Creek feel like home. As she walked along the main street, her eyes caught sight of Owen Carter, working outside the hardware store. He was tall and solidly built, with a calm presence that seemed to blend seamlessly into the town around him. He was busy fixing a wooden bench for the park, his hands moving with skilled precision. Yet he glanced up and smiled at passing neighbors, offering a polite nod to Lily as she approached. There was something familiar in the way he carried himself, a quiet confidence tempered by a gentle kindness that made her heart give a small, unanticipated flutter. She realized she had seen him many times before, but never truly noticed him until now. Their conversation began with polite greetings, the kind exchanged by old acquaintances who shared a past but had grown apart with time. Owen's voice was steady and warm, and Lily felt a surprising ease in his presence. They spoke of the town, of small improvements to the park, and of shared memories from school days. Every word, every laugh, and every glance seemed to carry an unspoken recognition of their intertwined histories, though neither addressed it directly. Lily found herself noticing little details she had missed before. The way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the thoughtful pauses in his speech, and the quiet attentiveness that made her feel heard even in casual conversation. As she continued her errands, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that Owen's presence was more than coincidence. He appeared at the right moments, always nearby when she walked past the park or visited the corner shop. There was a subtle tension beneath their interactions, a sense of familiarity mixed with curiosity and unspoken questions. She wondered if he had returned to Willow Creek for the same reasons she had, or he had never really left the town in spirit. The realization that someone could hold such a quiet, yet profound place in her life unsettled and intrigued her at the same time. By the time she returned home, Lily's mind was full of thoughts about the town, the letters, and the mysterious connection she felt toward Owen. She placed her groceries on the counter and glanced out the window toward Magnolia Lane. The street bathed in the soft glow of the late afternoon sun. The town seemed to hum with quiet life and possibility, and in that moment, Lily felt the subtle excitement of discovery stirring within her. She understood that returning home was not just about revisiting old memories, but also about encountering people and experiences that could unexpectedly shift her perspective and touch her heart in ways she had never anticipated. Chapter 4. A closer look. Over the next few days, Lily found herself thinking more and more about the letters. Each time she walked past the mailbox or heard the soft rustle of paper in the wind, her curiosity pulled her back to the stack of envelopes resting on the kitchen counter. She began examining them with greater care, noticing details she had initially overlooked. The handwriting was consistent across the letters, elegant yet unpretentious, and the words themselves were infused with warmth, observation, and an awareness of the small, intimate details of life on Magnolia Lane. There were mentions of blooming flowers in neighbors' gardens, laughter heard from the park, and even the way sunlight fell across certain streets at particular times of the day. It was as if the letters were written by someone who had watched the town closely and cherished it in the quiet, personal way that only someone deeply connected to it could. The thought that someone might be following her routines or paying attention to her life made Lily's heart beat faster. But it was not fear that she felt, it was intrigue, an eagerness to understand the mind and heart behind the words. She began to look for clues, small hints that might reveal the writer's identity. She compared the handwriting to people she knew in town, thought about who might take the time to craft such thoughtful messages, and wondered whether the letters were meant as expressions of friendship, nostalgia, or something more tender. Each detail seemed to point toward a person who was careful, observant, and emotionally sincere. As Lily ventured outside for her daily walk along Magnolia Lane, she noticed Owen again, this time repairing a railing along one of the older houses. He looked up and gave her a friendly nod, the kind that suggested recognition and familiarity. There was an ease to his movements and an attentiveness to his work that caught her attention. It was in these quiet, unspectacular moments that she felt a subtle pull, the sense that he was part of the fabric of the town in a way that went beyond simple presence. She wondered if he could be the mysterious author of the letters, though she had no proof. His thoughtfulness, the way he seemed to notice small details and care for his surroundings, matched the tone and sensibility of the notes she had received. The idea lingered in her mind throughout the day, coloring even mundane tasks with a quiet excitement. Lily found herself scanning the streets for signs, listening to snippets of conversation, and noticing familiar faces with renewed attention. She began to observe the rhythm of daily life in Willow Creek, as though she were piecing together a puzzle. Every glance, every casual interaction seemed loaded with possibility. The letters had transformed ordinary days into something rich with mystery and anticipation, turning familiar streets into a landscape of subtle discovery. That evening, Lily sat at the kitchen table with the letters spread around her, her fingers brushing over each envelope as she revisited the words within. She made mental notes of repeated phrases and small observations, wondering if they could serve as clues to the writer's identity. The possibility that Owen could be behind them both thrilled and unsettled her, creating a quiet tension that made each interaction with him feel charged and meaningful. She realized that the letters were no longer just messages. They had become a lens through which she was beginning to see the town and its people anew. Each word whispered of connection, intimacy, and attention to the world around them, and Lily felt a quiet sense of anticipation, knowing that the mystery was only just beginning to unfold. Chapter 5. Sparks in the air the following week. Willow Creek seemed to pulse with quiet energy as the town prepared for the annual spring clean-up. Flower beds needed tending, park benches required repairs, and fresh paint was needed on the community centre walls. Lily volunteered to help, partly as a way to settle into her routine and partly to occupy her mind, while the mystery of the letters lingered in her thoughts. She arrived at the park with a bag of gardening tools and a heart full of anticipation, unsure of what the day might bring. Almost immediately, she spotted Owen. His sleeves rolled up, he worked to sand and stain a wooden bench. He looked up when he noticed her and offered a small, warm smile that made her chest flutter unexpectedly. Working side by side, they fell into easy conversation, discussing the town's history, the best ways to care for flowers, and memories of past events on Magnolia Lane. There was a gentle rhythm to their exchanges, light and casual on the surface, but underlined with a subtle emotional resonance. Lily found herself laughing more freely than she had in years, feeling a sense of ease that had been absent during her hectic city life. Owen, for his part, seemed equally engaged, offering thoughtful comments, gentle encouragement, and the occasional teasing remark that made her smile and feel a warmth spreading through her chest. The letters, though unmentioned, lingered in her thoughts as a silent bridge connecting their growing closeness. As the morning stretched into afternoon, Lily noticed small details that deepened her appreciation for Owen. The way he carefully measured each brushstroke, the patience he showed when untangling stubborn vines, and the way he listened attentively whenever she spoke. All of it hinted at a quiet attentiveness that mirrored the care and thoughtfulness of the letters she had been reading. Every gesture, no matter how ordinary, seemed imbued with meaning, leaving her both intrigued and captivated. She realized that the connection she felt toward Owen extended beyond familiarity and into something far more tender and profound. At one point, while taking a break and sitting on the freshly sanded bench, they shared a moment of quiet reflection. The sun filtered through the oak trees, casting dappled light across the grass, and the air was fragrant with blooming magnolias. Owen glanced at her, his expression thoughtful, and Lily felt the weight of unspoken emotions hanging between them. She found herself wondering if he had always noticed her in this way, or if this closeness had grown only now, in the space of shared work and conversation. The letters, she realized, might have been the key to understanding the depth of his feelings. Though their true significance remained a mystery she longed to unravel. By the end of the day, both were tired but content, their hands smudged with paint and soil, and their hearts lighter with the subtle joy of companionship. Lily walked home slowly, savoring the lingering warmth of the sun and the quiet happiness of the afternoon. The letters, the town, and Owen's gentle presence had combined to create a sense of possibility she had not felt in years. A spark had been lit, one that promised tenderness, curiosity, and perhaps a deeper connection, waiting patiently to grow as they spent more time together. That evening, as she placed the letters back on the counter, Lily felt a quiet hope settle in her chest, knowing that something beautiful and unexpected was beginning to bloom on Magnolia Lane. Chapter 6. Secrets Unveiled. A few days later, Lily found herself walking along the tree-lined streets of Willow Creek, the soft crunch of gravel beneath her feet mingling with the distant hum of children playing and neighbors chatting. The letters had become a quiet presence in her life, and she could no longer ignore the feeling that they were tied to someone she already knew. Owen had been on her mind more than she cared to admit, his presence in town coinciding with the arrival of the mysterious notes. Each time she saw him, whether at the park, the store, or even just passing on Magnolia Lane, her heart raced with an anticipation she could not fully explain. There was a depth to his quiet smile, a warmth in his eyes, that now seemed mirrored in the tone of the letters. That evening, as they worked together on a small project for the community centre, Owen seemed unusually thoughtful. He paused mid-task and looked at her with a vulnerability that made Lily stop in her tracks. "Lily," he began softly, "There's something I should tell you. I wanted to say it for a long time, but I never found the courage. The letters, I wrote them," her breath caught, and for a moment the world seemed to hold its breath with her. He explained that he had admired her from afar, had watched her grow and flourish in the town she had left behind, but fear and uncertainty had kept him silent. The letters had been his way of expressing the feelings he could not speak aloud. Lily sat quietly, absorbing his words. The revelation brought a rush of emotions, surprise, relief, and a warmth that spread from her chest to her fingertips. Everything suddenly made sense: the subtle attentiveness in his actions, the familiarity that had always lingered in the background, and the quiet intensity she had felt when reading the letters. She realized that the words she had cherished were not random musings, but heartfelt expressions from someone who truly understood her and the town she loved. There was a sincerity in his confession that made her feel deeply seen and valued in a way she had not expected. As the evening wore on, they lingered on the porch of the community center, the fading light casting a soft glow over their faces. Owen shared memories of times he had thought of her, of the quiet moments he had noticed, and of the little joys of Willow Creek that had inspired his words. Lily, in turn, found herself opening up about her years in the city, the loneliness she had felt, and the longing for connection that had drawn her back home. Each revelation built a fragile bridge of trust between them, connecting the hearts behind the letters to the reality of their shared presence. By the time the stars began to appear in the clear night sky, Lily felt a profound shift within herself. The letters had been a window into Owen's heart, but now the man sitting beside her was the living embodiment of everything she had sensed through his words. The quiet vulnerability, the thoughtfulness, and the warmth that had drawn her in were no longer abstract. They were real, tangible, and profoundly moving. She realized that the connection they had discovered through the letters was only the beginning, a tender foundation upon which something far deeper could grow. In the soft stillness of that evening, surrounded by the comforting embrace of Willow Creek, Lily allowed herself to hope that this revelation was the start of a journey that would bring love, trust, and perhaps even a sense of home she had never fully known before. Chapter 7. Confessions on Magnolia Lane. The evening air on Magnolia Lane was soft and fragrant with the scent of blooming magnolias, and the sky above was painted in shades of lavender and gold as the sun began its slow descent. Lily walked beside Owen, their steps unhurried, allowing the quiet of the street to wrap around them. The warmth of the day lingered in the fading light, and the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze seemed to mirror the subtle fluttering of her heart. For the first time since returning to Willow Creek, she felt completely present, each moment rich with the possibility of connection and understanding. They stopped in front of the old oak tree, the corner of the lane, the one that had been a favorite childhood gathering place for friends and neighbors. Owen leaned against its sturdy trunk, a thoughtful expression on his face, and Lily realized that the letters had been a prelude to this very moment. The air between them held a quiet intensity, a mixture of anticipation, relief, and the tentative excitement of shared vulnerability. She could see the depth of his emotions reflected in his eyes, the same depth she had sensed through his words on paper. "I never knew how to tell you," Owen began, his voice low and steady. "How much I cared, how much I noticed. I thought the letters could say what I couldn't speak aloud." He paused, letting his words settle between them, and Lily felt a wave of emotion that made her chest tighten. She had imagined this confession countless times in her mind, but now that it was happening, it felt both exhilarating and profoundly tender. Every detail, every sentiment he had expressed in the letters, was now anchored in reality, in the person standing beside her. Lily took a deep breath and responded with honesty she had never before allowed herself. She spoke of her years away, the loneliness she had carried in the city, and the quiet longing for a place and a person who truly understood her. She admitted that the letters had touched her deeply, that they had made her feel seen and cherished even before she knew the writer's identity. Their conversation flowed naturally, a delicate dance of confessions and shared truths, each revelation strengthening the bond that had been quietly forming between them. As the stars began to emerge overhead, their hands found each other, tentative at first, then with a gentle certainty. The street, the tree, the soft glow of lanterns from nearby homes all seemed to fade into the background as they shared the unspoken understanding that had grown between them. The letters had been a bridge, but now their hearts were directly connected, each beat echoing the others. In quiet harmony, they lingered under the oak tree long after the sun had disappeared, talking about their dreams, regrets, and hopes for the future. The weight of unspoken words lifted, replaced by a sense of possibility and the comforting knowledge that they had found each other once again. Magnolia Lane, with all its memories and quiet charm, had become the setting for a profound emotional reunion, a place where honesty, tenderness, and mutual understanding blossomed alongside the familiar magnolias. By the time they finally walked back toward the house, hand in hand, the night air carried a gentle promise. The letters had led them here, but it was their shared presence, openness, and courage to embrace vulnerability that had cemented the beginning of something lasting. Lily felt a quiet certainty that the connection they had rediscovered was not fleeting, that the moments on Magnolia Lane would be the foundation for a love both tender and enduring. Chapter 8: Challenges and Misunderstandings. Warmth and closeness Lily and Owen had begun to share seemed to settle into a comforting rhythm, but small ripples of uncertainty soon appeared to test the bond between them. One afternoon, while Lily was helping at the town library, she overheard a few neighbors exchanging hushed comments about Owen and the letters. Their words were innocent enough on the surface, but they carried assumptions and half-formed conclusions that made her chest tighten. Questions began to form in her mind. Had Owen's letters really been as sincere as he claimed, or had there been something more calculated behind them? The thought left her unsettled, knowing at the quiet trust she had been building. When she confronted Owen later that day, he could see immediately the worrying in her eyes. She tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat, tangled with hurt and uncertainty. I heard some things," she finally admitted, "and I don't know what to believe anymore." Owen's expression shifted, a shadow of concern crossing his usually calm features. He took her hands in his, gentle but firm, trying to ground her. "Lily, I understand how it might look," he said quietly, "but everything I've said, everything in those letters, has been true. I wrote them for you, for no one else." Despite his reassurance, Lily felt a swirl of doubt and confusion. Part of her wanted to trust him completely, to believe in the sincerity she had seen in his eyes and felt in his words. But another part feared being vulnerable again, worried that opening her heart so fully could lead to disappointment. She pulled away slightly, not in anger, but in hesitation, needing space to reconcile her emotions. Owen, sensing the fragility of the moment, did not press but instead offered patience, knowing that trust could not be demanded, but had to be nurtured. In the days that followed, the distance between them was subtle yet palpable. Simple interactions became layered with caution, laughter a little quieter, and silences a little longer. Lily spent time reflecting on her feelings, revisiting the letters and recalling the earnestness behind each carefully chosen word. She remembered the afternoons they had shared working on the park and community projects, the gentle way he listened, and the moments when his eyes had lingered on her with unspoken care. Slowly, she realized that the small-town gossip and misunderstandings were fleeting compared to the truth she had experienced firsthand. Owen, too, spent time reflecting on his own actions, concerned that his honesty might not have been enough to bridge the sudden gap. He thought about the letters, the quiet courage it had taken to express his feelings without fear of ridicule or misunderstanding, and the risk he had taken in opening his heart. His determination to prove the depth of his affection for Lily grew stronger, not with grand gestures, but with patience, consistency, and the quiet reassurance of presence. By the weekend, they found themselves together again, working on another small project for the town. The tension eased gradually as they exchanged tentative smiles and light conversation. Trust, Lily realized, was not erased by a single doubt or outside interference. It was strengthened when met with honesty and persistence. The letters had brought them together, but their ability to navigate uncertainty and remain vulnerable to each other would determine the strength of the bond that had begun to blossom. In that quiet resilience, both Lily and Owen discovered that love was not just about perfect moments, but about facing doubts, misunderstandings, and fears together, hand in hand, with hearts open and willing to try again. Chapter 9. 𝐼𝐻𝐵𝐻𝐿𝐴 town of Willow Creek was alive with anticipation as the annual spring festival approached. The streets decorated with colorful banners and strings of lights that twinkled like stars in the soft evening air. Lily wandered among the stalls, savoring the scents of fresh-baked bread, blooming flowers, and sweet caramel drifting from candy vendors. Her thoughts, as always, lingered on Owen, the letters, and the quiet moments they had shared. She felt a mix of hope and nervous anticipation, unsure what the weekend might bring, but certain that something meaningful was on the horizon. Unbeknownst to her, Owen had been planning a gesture that would finally convey the depth of his feelings. He wanted to show her, not just in words, but through actions, that the letters were only the beginning of what he hoped would become a shared life. As Lily admired a display of handmade crafts, she noticed Owen approaching, carrying a small bundle of carefully wrapped envelopes. Her curiosity piqued. She stopped and watched as he arranged the letters on a table at the festival's center, each one open for the townspeople to see. They were not just letters to her. They were an artful chronicle of moments, memories, and emotions that captured the beauty of everyday life in Willow Creek. Lily's eyes widened as she approached the table, recognizing the familiar handwriting, the delicate phrasing, and the heartfelt observations that had captivated her weeks ago. Owen stepped forward, his gaze steady and full of warmth. "These letters," he said softly, "were my way of sharing what I feel, of showing that even the smallest moments matter when they are lived with love and attention. I wanted everyone to see how much life and connection can mean, and most of all, I wanted you to know how much you mean to me." A hush fell over the nearby crowd as neighbors leaned in to read snippets of the letters, marveling at the depth of feeling and the honesty behind each word. Lily felt tears prick the corners of her eyes as she looked at Owen, her heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude, awe, and love. The letters had been private, intimate expressions of emotion, and yet by sharing them publicly, Owen had taken a leap of vulnerability that mirrored the courage it had taken to write them in the first place. His gesture was not showy or grand in the traditional sense, but it was deeply personal and meaningful, a reflection of his heart laid bare for her to see. As the festival continued around them, Lily stepped closer, taking Owen's hand in hers. The warmth of his touch was grounding, a reminder that the connection they had discovered through letters and shared moments was real, tangible, and unbreakable. They walked together through the festival, speaking softly, laughing at small jokes, and sharing glances filled with affection and understanding. Each step they took together was a reaffirmation of the trust and love that had grown between them, strengthened not by perfection, but by honesty, courage, and mutual care. By the time the lanterns were lit and the evening air shimmered with soft light, Willow Creek seemed transformed into a world where hearts could be seen and celebrated openly. Lily knew in that moment that Owen's gesture was not merely a public display, but a promise of devotion, patience, and unwavering love. The letters had brought them together, but it was the vulnerability, thoughtfulness, and courage behind this grand gesture that cemented their bond. On Magnolia Lane, under the glow of lanterns and the gaze of a supportive community, Lily and Owen embraced the possibility of a future together, full of tenderness, trust, and the quiet magic of small-town life that had always brought them home to each other. Chapter 10. Home is where the hottest morning sun spilled golden light across Magnolia Lane, illuminating the familiar rooftops and flower-filled gardens that had welcomed Lily back to Willow Creek. The quiet of the early hours wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, and she breathed deeply, savoring the scent of magnolias and fresh earth. The town had always held a gentle rhythm, but now, after weeks of letters, confessions, misunderstandings, and heartfelt gestures, it felt alive in a new way, infused with possibility, warmth, and the quiet certainty of belonging. Lily stepped onto her porch, looking down the street where neighbors were beginning their daily routines. The air was filled with soft greetings, the distant laughter of children, and the hum of small-town life unfolding as it always had. Yet for Lily, everything had changed. She thought of Owen, his steady presence, the letters that had first bridged the gap between their hearts, and the public display of his love at the festival. Each memory made her heart swell with gratitude and joy. She realized that the letters, once mysterious and filled with curiosity, had been the first step toward a love that was now tangible, real, and rooted deeply in her life. As she turned, she saw Owen walking toward her, his expression warm and open, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. In his hand, he carried a simple bouquet of fresh flowers, their colors vivid against the morning light. Without a word, he extended them to her, and Lily accepted them, feeling the familiar warmth of his hand against hers. There was no need for grand declarations. Their shared glances, the easy laughter that followed, and the quiet understanding in their eyes spoke volumes. Love, she realized, was not in the extravagant gestures alone, but in the consistency, thoughtfulness, and presence that had carried them to this moment. They walked together along Magnolia Lane, hand in hand, noticing the familiar details that had once seemed ordinary but now shimmered with significance. The benches Owen had repaired, the flowers they had tended in the community garden, and the streets lined with oak trees all felt like milestones marking their journey. Each step was a reminder that home was not just a place, but a feeling nurtured through connection, care, and shared experience. Lily felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that she was exactly where she belonged, with someone who saw her fully and cherished her deeply. As the day progressed, neighbors waved, familiar voices called greetings, and the town itself seemed to embrace them in its quiet, unwavering way. Lily and Owen paused beneath the old oak tree on the corner of Magnolia Lane, the same spot where they had shared confessions and built trust. They sat together, talking about dreams for the future, the simple joys of everyday life, and the happiness found in being present with one another. The letters, once a mystery, had become a testament to patience, courage, and the gentle unfolding of love. As twilight settled over Willow Creek, Lily rested her head on Owen's shoulder, the magnolia petals floating softly in the evening breeze. She knew that life would continue with its small challenges and quiet joys, but she also knew that with Owen by her side, each day would be filled with understanding, tenderness, and the unwavering sense of home they had found together. Magnolia Lane was no longer just a street she remembered from childhood. It was a place where hearts met, love flourished, and life felt complete. In that moment, surrounded by the beauty of her town, the warmth of her community, and the steady presence of Owen, Lily understood that home was truly where the heart was, and her heart had found its place.